Hello, 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 everybody. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're at in the world. I have no clue where you're tuning in from, but listen, you guys know I always come to you on Wednesday. So I've decided to do something a little different this Wednesday. Come to you usually on Wednesday to give you a message, sometimes on Mondays, sometimes on Wednesdays. But today I wanted to make it even more special. I have a special guest today. And you say, who's the special guest? Because I didn't really tell you who it was. Well, maybe I did, maybe I didn't. I don't know. But I just want to let you guys know that today I'm going to bring this amazing young lady that I just had to just kind of do a spotlight on her. Earlier this year, I actually met her. I believe I met her before then, but I know I met her earlier this year at what I have something called my Power Hour, and she was there. She was in the audience, and we just kind of connected at that point. And then little did I know that she was going to be nominated for my Sister's Choice Award that I have as part of the Celebrating You Women's Conference. And with that, let me tell you, it's just been like nonstop. So in this conference, for all the women who were nominated for the Sister Choice Award, she was the runner up. But when I tell you that it doesn't matter if she was a runner up or not, her phenomenal. I was like, I have to still spotlight her, even though she was very, very close. Her and the actual and Sharice, who actually was the Sister Choice, they were like this. It was like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But I was like, wow, I really still have to sometime during the year spotlight her and spotlight her at one of the conferences. So we just did the finale for the Celebrating You Women's Conference. I'm like so excited because that was like I can't even get my words. Like, I sound like SpongeBob right then and there. But and we did shout her out. But I said, you know what? We're gonna bring her on Wednesday since I come live to you on Wednesday anyway, and she's just gonna be our special guest. So before I bring her on, which her name is, I'm gonna tell you her name. Her name is Christine Joy, right? What a joy. Joy, 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 joy down in my heart. She is the founder of Purple House Project. And I have at the cheek, like I'm a little pamphlet here. Mm-hmm. And her mission is about to strengthen, empower, and transition women from intimate partner violence. Is based in Delaware County, and she strives to assist the community through outreach, service, and one-on-one support. So when I tell you that, she is there to serve the community, I just ran into her the other day where she was serving the community, where I had some toiletry items and some books to donate. And lo and behold, it wasn't even her organization. It was another organization. So when I tell you that's just how much of a giving spirit this woman is, that she has her own mission, her own foundation, but yet still find time to give her time and talent to another foundation. That's just remarkable. And this is why she was the Sister's Choice. This was why she was one of the Sister's Choice out of all the amazing women that were nominated. So with that, without further ado, I'm going to, like I said, normally I'll give you a message, but the message right now, okay, if I do give you a message, let me give you a message. It's just count your blessings before you get them. How about that? Count your blessings before you get them. 2020 has been the year that you chose to make it. And if you're listening to this, then that means you made it. You may not have made everything that you had, that you wanted, right? It may not have turned out exactly the way that you wanted, but it still turned out and you're still here. So therefore you've made it. So therefore we must count our blessings one by one. We got to count our blessings before we even get them. So, and I know that because I just saw a replay or memory from what I said last year today. And it was like, yes, this is so true. This is so true. So that's your message. So I can't say I didn't give you anything, but here we go. I am going to welcome to the forefront, to the stage, whatever you want to call it, my special guest for today. I see you smiling back there, boo. Miss Christine Joy. Hello.
How are you?
How are you? I'm doing wonderful. How about you this evening?
I'm doing great. I love that message you just gave. I'm like, I need to write that somewhere on my office. Count your blessings before you get them. Wow. That was the first time I heard that before.
Yeah. Count your blessings before you even get them, because You're going to get them. You just have to just believe. You just have to believe and have faith, and that goes with, and it kind of ties into the message that I had the other day about my actual conference with, I just had this goal of I had this idea, right? I can't even say a goal, it was an idea of having this large virtual conference with, on an international scale, with having like on one big day, having 5 countries represented and over 25 speakers. And I'm like, what? Like me? Like this one? I don't even know anybody that live overseas except for one person. I'm like, So I was like, you know what? We're going to just do it. And this is what I believed in. Now, granted, very unorthodox, did not come out exactly the way it was planned. However, it's like you write the vision, you make it plain. That's the scripture that we all know. Write the vision and make it plain. Write the vision and make it plain. However, no one ever talks about the next verse, which is the part about believing in it. And
the vision may tarry, right?
Say it again.
It's like, though the vision may tarry or something like that. I can't remember the next verse.
It's basically telling you to wait, and it's going to happen in its divine time.
Yes.
That's basically the bottom line. It's going to happen the way it's going to happen. You just have to wait. It's like you write it down and you make it plain, and that's yes, but then you have to wait. You have to still execute, and then you have to wait. And it's going to come out exactly the way it's supposed to. So back to me having this vision, this idea, this crazy idea of my virtual conference with, 5 different countries, not just the United States, but countries, right? Mm-hmm. And with 25 speakers from all around the world. And what wound up happening, instead of it being that one day that I thought back in June, mm-hmm. and I had the last one, the finale last weekend, last Sunday, Saturday. Look, it's
that
oh my God, Saturday. Just had it on Saturday. Mm-hmm. And when I was doing the flyer, I was like, wait a minute, not the flyer, but I was doing the slide deck. And I'm like, wait a second. I did this thing 4 times this year so far. 4 quarters, right? That's a whole, that's one whole. So that's my one day, right? Mm-hmm. I was like, wait a minute, I had at least 5 speakers each time. And I was like counting, I was like,
that's 20.
I was like, oh snap. Wait a minute, no. But this last one, I had 10 speakers.
Wow, you exceeded.
That's what I'm saying. I was like, wait a minute. I was like, whoa. So when I really broke it down, and I was like, oh my, I said, God, I said, there has to be something about the waiting, because I didn't even see this one coming. It just literally just like unfolded right in front of me. I just kept going. Okay, we did it this time. And like I talked about in my live the other day, I said, it just didn't feel right. And, and then you just move forward. And I just did it. And I did the next one. And I'm like, okay, yet there's more. It didn't feel right. I got to do another one. And then I was like, okay, here's part 1. It was almost like, I don't know if anyone out there remembers Sherry and Lamb Chop, and said, this is the song that never ends. It was like the conference that never ends. It just kept going. It kept going like an ever ready bunny until that's okay. December, I did the one in September. And I'm like, this is going to be the big one. I was like, okay, December, we're going to finish this thing out in December. And that's what I just did on Saturday. That was the finale. And when I counted, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. I did have. So when I broke it all down, I counted all the speakers, all the contributors, whether they sent the video in, because I counted them too now, right? Whether they sent in a video or whether they actually spoke live, it was 30. Wow. So that exceeded the 25 speakers. Oh, and wait, there's more. When I said 5 countries, I think I counted 7. It was 7 or 8.
Wow.
Countries.
Wow.
Yeah. And I didn't even talk about the states. I think there was, multiple states throughout the United States, like, I don't know, 8 or something like that, a multiple number. Whereas I'm like, whoa, that it was one of those.
Right. Well, you guys can look at it. Yeah.
And that's when I started to appreciate. And that's when I was like, now this feels, I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like, thank you, God. Like counting the blessings before you even get them. Like I was diligent, right? Mm-hmm. I was hopeful, right? I just did it, not even realizing that I was doing what I had wrote down to make plain. It's just that next part was the waiting and allowing it to unfold the way it was supposed to. May not have been the way I thought it was. However, it laid out exactly how it was intended to lay out. So now with you got your vision, right?
Yes.
Of Purple House Project. I'm pretty
Yes.
sure it didn't turn out exactly how you thought initially, right?
Mm-hmm.
So tell everybody how you got how you came up with this Purple House Project.
Yeah, for sure. Can I start off with this year and then work my way back? Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
So as you were talking about how like things didn't happen the way you expected to this year, it was so interesting. So Purple House Project has been around for about 4 years. And so last year was our first year actually applying for grants. And so we applied for this really, really big grant. It was like, if your dreams aren't scaring you, they're not big enough, right? And so it was like a multi-year $300,000 grant. And I remember we applied we started the process back in June, and I sat for like the RFP, which is the request for proposals. And then we got invited so they had to select people from the first round. And so we got selected to apply for the full grant. And so we applied in October, which is our busiest season because it's Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and we usually have our community event. And so from October till March, we're waiting to hear back about this grant. And at the beginning of the year, I decided to begin a fast from social media from January until we learned about the grant. And so I fasted, and there's this dope organization called Highsdale Haven. That is how I met Yolanda, because she used to sit on the board there. And so they had decided to dissolve their organization, and they called me and they said, hey, we want to donate our last remaining donations to your organization because we really admire the work you do. And I was super excited. So I think we got that on a Tuesday. And then that Thursday, we got the email that we didn't get the grant. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like sad. But then I was just like, okay, also grateful because I had texted my mom and I was like, hey mom, we didn't get the grant, but I'm really grateful to even just be able to sit in a room with executives who've been in the game for like 20 plus years and just have the ability to like apply for the same grant as them. And so my mom was like, don't worry, Christine, like no just means next opportunity. And I was like, you're right, mom. And so then the city began to shut down back in March. And so in April, we were supposed to have a bowling party. And so usually at our bowling parties, we raised about like $500 to $600. And so we wasn't able to have our bowling party. And so we decided to do like a $2 plus campaign. So I think you probably all remember in the spring, nonprofits and small businesses was doing a $2+ campaign where they were just asking their friends for $2+. And within a matter of like 48 hours, we raised like $400+. And so in the month of April, although we weren't able to have a traditional fundraiser, we raised over $800, which is what we would have raised at the bowling party. And so then from there, people just kept on like reaching out to me. So there's this amazing woman named Karen Smith and Ms. Deborah Wright and Pat McLean, and they have this Sunday circles at 7. And they called me and they said, hey, Christine, we want to host a virtual event and donate the proceeds. My favorite comedian, Nicole Phoenix, said the same thing. Like, we want to host the event and donate the proceeds. And before we knew it, by July, we had already quadrupled our donations that we usually get in a year. And we hadn't even had a fundraiser, like an actual fundraiser, because of the pandemic. And then fast forward, we got our first ever grant in June. And I was so grateful because I just couldn't imagine if we would have got the multi-year grant. The multi-year grant wanted us to break ground, and we were supposed to like start renovations. Now we all know those renovations would have had to come to a halt because of COVID. But the type of grant we received, instead of the multi-year grant, we were able to still live out the mission of the grant. And so as you were talking about how your year just like unfolded in a way that you didn't imagine, I feel like that's Purple House Project story. Like, we have like quadrupled to the 100th power, like the amount of financial contributions we've received. We haven't had not one, fundraiser, but it's all been like virtual stuff. And we've been able to like bless other organizations as well, which has been amazing. We've been able to pay our consultants the full price and not the discounted price. And it's just been a really good year. I was reflecting about a year ago. I was reflecting earlier this week, always reflecting about how, like, when I first started Purple House Project, I started it with like $50. I had a bowling party and I asked my aunties to make potato salad and somebody else to make meatballs. And we raised, the money for, the 501c3 paperwork. And I really started it because I wanted to, provide a holistic opportunity for women to heal, women who are impacted by intimate partner violence. Intimate partner violence is really near and dear to my heart. There have been people in my family who have been impacted, and just like watching them go through what they went through, and not only just them, but everyone connected to them, I knew I wanted to be a part of the healing process. And so that's kind of where Purple House Project started. And we're all about collaborating with other organizations because we want to, not reinvent the wheel. So that's us in a nutshell.
Wow. No, I want you to elaborate some more on that, but that's so dope that how we talked about how your year unfolded. And that's literally like, if people can really sit back and reflect on their year, even though we got a lot of no's. And oh my God, I had to write that down. Your mom is like a genius. Next opportunity.
I was like, right, Mom, you are right.
That's a whole adage of, when one door closes, another one opens. And see, that other one wasn't for you. So that goes back to what's for you is for you. What's for me is for me. So although, like you said, but what they did was that gave you calluses. They built you up to prepare for the next one. So now, you had a seat at the table. You were in the room. So, and I know all the heavy hitters you were going up against. Because I served on the board for multiple years and was the chairman of the board for one of the major organizations. One of the three. There's only three that they give money to in the city. There's only three. And if you're not one of those two or three, it's very difficult for you to get money. But just to even be in that pool, is phenomenal. And that was just preparing you. And then because of being prepared and being diligent with your mission, right? And still moving forward and doing, look how you've been blessed. Look how, the whole organization has been blessed and everyone else is still benefit. Like, for instance, I talked about we were at a Center for Hope, right? Center for Hope.
Yeah.
Okay, Center for Hope. So I missed what your presentation was, but I'm thinking I'm coming to your organization. I didn't know it was another organization. And I'm like, this is beyond amazing. Like this is what it's all about. It's like you're supposed to give unto others and others will give unto you. So because of your spirit, because of that's now I see why you were nominated. I just happened to go to comments and I see Miss Yolanda. You gave her a shout out. Hey, Yolanda. She's blowing up the feed, the news feed.
My lady right there. That's the first time I met you. I actually met you because I went. I think Broad and 66. What's that library like? All the way up Broad Street. All the way up.
Yeah. That was at my Power Hour. Yes, that was at the Power Hour.
Well, the one before that, it was like in the wintertime. Yolanda, I think it was around Domestic Violence Awareness Month because Yolanda.
Yes.
I've been admiring you from a distance for a while. That was the first time I met
you. You know what? That's true. You're right, because I did say, I know I met you there, but I think I met you somewhere and I couldn't remember where. That's where it was because Yolanda was one of my panelists. Yes, for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Absolutely.
And then it was a small world because I saw your aunt there and I had met your aunt at a previous event and we just connected really well. And so she's like, oh, you know my niece? And I was like, I don't, but like I need to get to know her.
Exactly. The circle in Philadelphia is smaller and smaller for those who are doing good, right? For those who are connected in a different way to serve, right? That's what I'm finding. I'm connecting to people that I'm supposed to be connected with. So, for those two, for that topic you talked about with the intimate partner violence. So people who don't know what that is, that's basically is domestic violence, but it just has intimate partner because it's anytime you're in a relationship with someone, any type, and it's an intimate relationship, and it could be, that could be family, that could be significant other, like it's something that's intimate, and then you still go through the same type of abuse as someone in a domestic violence. Because we always think of same, opposite partner. It could be same partner. It could be not partner. You guys know what I'm talking about. Yeah. I hope. There we go. We're gonna leave it at that. So what I'm saying is that is something that I'm all about as well with, domestic violence and also sexual child abuse, because I'm a survivor of both. And a lot of times, and you probably have found in the work that you've done in the past 4 years, that a lot of times, a lot of the individuals that go through any type of IPV or intimate partner violence of any type, any sort, has some another type of underlying abuse that have occurred prior to, because that was whatever other abuse was the foundation, whether it was sexual abuse, whether it was abandonment, it was child abuse. So either child abuse, period, or sexual child abuse. And that usually laid some sort of groundwork or foundation for this intimate partner violence to even come to the forefront, because of, you know, low self-esteem, because of not knowing your worth, because of all different variations. It all kind of interconnects. So that's why I never separate the two. But I understand where my foundation lies under the child abuse, the sexual child abuse, where for years I neglected and I didn't want to own it. Right? I didn't want to own it. I owned the domestic violence. Like, yep, survivor of that. Yep, I'm advocating for that. That's why I was serving on the boards, and that's why I was doing all this work for these major organizations that, you know, being the voice for that. And I'm like, yeah, I'm the voice for that, but let's break it down. And the original, the origin to it was the sexual child abuse. That was the foundational cause to allow those other things to take place. And that's the root cause for a lot of people, you know, not everybody, but the majority. That's what I found in the work that I've done on my end. I don't know about with you.
Yeah.
But I don't know if anybody has any questions out there. We got a few people who were tuning in. If you're watching on Facebook, I'm using something called StreamYard, so you have to get permission, so that way you can comment. Or if you're watching on YouTube, you could just go ahead and comment. But if you have any questions for myself or Christine, please give her a question while we have her live. But I just wanted to, you know, celebrate you and let people know exactly who you are. And that was fun. So yeah, let's go back to the Sister's Choice Awards. So tell me about when you found out you were nominated. What was that whole feeling about?
So I was so geeked. Like, I remember like just being just getting the first invitation of the nominee. I was just like, oh my God, who nominated me? Like, I was so honored. And I think the part, because I feel like I like sometimes struggle with like imposter syndrome, because I looked at everybody's bio on it and I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, those women are powerful. Like, I was just like, I can't wait till the world opens back up, because I'm hoping you have us all in the same room, because the energy in that room is going to be crazy.
Crazy.
And so I was super excited. And, you know, another beauty about the pandemic is that like people from all over the country were able to like chime in and vote for me. Like, I'm in a sorority, and my sorority sisters from all over this country was like voting for me, and super excited, and it gave them like a glimpse of the work we do. And I was just super honored and humbled to just be nominated, because like there are some really, really powerhouses, you know, in Pennsylvania. And so everything was so nice. I was at the kickoff conference, and just like the speakers you had were dynamic. And so it was truly an honor, especially because I had just learned about you the year before or 2 years before. And then I was like, oh my God, I got nominated. So it was awesome.
Oh, well, thank you. Then speaking of Asha, she just jumped on and say, hey, Christine.
Hey, that's my lady.
She just jumped on. She's like, there we go. Boom. So, but yeah, no, that is so true, because it did open up the door and a window for so many people. I think there were, oh my gosh, I think it was like close to 12,000 people.
Wow.
Had chimed in for the Sister's Choice. I think there was 14 of you guys.
Wow.
And powerhouses indeed. And everyone really wasn't from Philadelphia, believe it or not. Everyone wasn't from the Pennsylvania area. So that was a feat in itself, to have people nominated from all over the country, and for people to chime in from all over the country and all over the world to just kind of show love. And that's what it was all about, to show love. And everybody got nominated, was all of our choices. Like, I couldn't have handpicked any of y'all. That's why I was like, okay, I gotta leave this up to everybody else because everybody was phenomenal. So I do understand that imposter syndrome, but that's but that's why we all come together when I do my Celebrating You Women's Conference, because I need to celebrate. I want all of us to celebrate each other because we are all phenomenal in our own rights with what we do. And it comes. So I mean, you know, just to hear you say, wow, I'm like, okay, I've been to her. And this is so funny because you haven't yet to experience it in person.
Yeah, I can't wait.
That's a whole nother. So I mean, you've been to the Power Hour and you've been to like the little things to do at the library, but you haven't seen the full scope. You got a taste of it virtually, but man, anybody's been to a celebrated CYWC conference, type in there, it's dope. Just type it's dope.
I see it on the internet. I can only imagine what it's gonna look like in person. So
it's insane. I'm just trying to say, I'm glad you said you can still feel the energy through the internet. That is so, look, Yolanda's like, yes. The energy is insane. It's insane. It's really insane. But that's because it's just, that's my thing, is that's my gift to you, because we do so much. You know, a lot of us wear all these hats as a mom, as a caretaker, as an, you know, either an employee or an employer, sometimes both, right? While we're building our brand, we still got to work for somebody, right? You know, doing whatever we may do in the community, you know, that's another hat. You know, it's just like we're just juggling so much, and not, you know, some of us may be wives, some of us may be significant others, some of us may be in our singleness, like wherever we're at, we're always juggling all these different components and aspects of us where we basically get split, and we're doing and we pour out to everyone else, but no one pours back into us. So my conference is literally, that's why it's called Celebrating You. Like, that's my day to celebrate all of you. So that's the day where you can say, you know what, kids, stay home. Like, this is mommy's day. Like, this is my day. This is my day to just like, okay, this is all about me today. And that's my gift. That's my gift to pour into all of you. So when I do my conferences, that's what it's all about, because I'm celebrating you. I'm celebrating. Everyone will say, well, who's going to pour back into you? I'm like, it's coming. It's coming. It's coming. That's not what we're talking about. It's all about you, not me. It's you. So, but I am just so, okay. Yolanda finally said, it's dope. It's dope. Okay. Yolanda said, Asha said, it's dope. It is dope. It's like beyond dope. So Christine, for those of you guys, I still have it up, and you can catch the finale. The finale is still live on YouTube. You can still check it out while it's still up before I take it down, but you definitely need to check it out. It was phenomenal. I still have to go back and rewatch it, because I always rewatch everything and then I get rehyped again, like, oh my gosh, beyond. Because like I said, you can just imagine what it's like in person. In person, it just has, the energy is still the same, but it just had, now you can feel, you can touch it. Now it's just like, I can't even really describe it. It's just so phenomenal. It's so phenomenal. It's an experience. I will tell you that. It's an experience for sure.
I'm definitely yeah.
So I definitely can't wait to bring everybody back. But but like I said, I wanted to just showcase you, and you know, because you're still phenomenal. You're so phenomenal in what you do, and just being able to offer this this service and making sure everyone heals from their intimate partner violence and things of that nature. So now, when you said that you're near and dear to it, do you want to share with everyone the how it got started? Like, what was your why behind Purple House Project?
So it was a couple different whys, but the one that's like rings the most true for me and most nearest to my heart is when I was in college, we had to do what's called like a genogram, and it's when they make you kind of draw out your family tree and you put all of your relatives and you talk about any patterns that have happened. And so usually you indicate if there was like any domestic violence or mental health in any strained relationships. And so I noticed as I was doing my genogram that there was like a lot of domestic violence directly connected to like my family line. So my mom, my grandma, and so I remember like viewing it, and that was like the first time I like actually thought about it when I was in college. Like, I knew about the trauma that like my grandmother and my mom experienced and like how it impacted like the residual trauma. But I didn't really understand it until I think I wrote it out on paper and I got older and I started to like go to these domestic violence shelters and like volunteer. And then in college, I also had the opportunity for my senior project to volunteer at a domestic violence organization, and I fell in love with it. It was a transitional housing facility, and so connected to a shelter. And in that moment, I knew that I wanted to do something with domestic violence. Not necessarily like a shelter, but I knew I wanted to be the step after the shelter. And then once after I graduated, I started on my career. And one of my first clients was a woman who was currently in a domestic violence relationship. And so thinking about the services that I could offer at the time, I felt like there were still gaps in the services. And so I kind of wanted to fill in those gaps that I felt like a lot of the services offer. I think we in the city do a great job at providing emergency resources. So like food, access to clothing, sometimes access to housing. But I think that we need to do more with like continuing to like strengthen, empower, and transition, like once they get out of the relationship and like building them back up, because there's so much that's broken, so much that's lost while they're in the relationship. And so at Purple House Project, I knew I wanted to create a space where we could like pour back into people, strengthen, empower, so that not only they can transition out of that relationship, but transition back into society as like a whole person. And so since conception, I've always wanted to, treat people mentally, physically, and emotionally through a therapeutic and holistic lens. And so it's kind of where Purple House Project came from, me seeing gaps in services and then me also firsthand seeing what trauma looks like untreated.
Wow. Yeah, I was over here nodding my head like, yep, yep. That is so true. There's when they transition, it's like, what are they transitioning to?
Right.
And that's kind of key, because it's like it's different variations, different stages to it. You're in it. Somehow you find yourself in it, and then you finally are out of it. And then it's like, so now what? Because there's so much of you that's now lost. There's so much of you that no longer exists. So now it's like, you have all of these pieces that are they nearly are almost beyond repair.
Like the relationships, like no one ever talks about the friendships that are lost during the domestic violence relationship or the intimate partner violence relationship, because one of the tactics of the partner is to keep you away from those relationships.
Away from people, the isolation.
And so while you're in it, your friends are like, oh, she or he or they are just acting different. And it's like, no, actually, I'm like being abused and you don't know this. And then like 10, 15 years go by. Like, how do you come back from something like that, So.
Yeah. No, I definitely understand. Because I know personally for myself, because I know I lost a lot of good friends that I was, doing a lot of stuff with. And, we're still friends now, but it's just different.
Right.
Because I isolated. It got to the point where I ended up isolating myself now because of embarrassment. Right. Because now, who do you confide in when you go through stuff? You confide into the people that are closest to you.
Right.
And when they tell you things or they share things with you, you hear it, but you may not adhere to it. Right. And then eventually it's kind of like, I can't even go talk to you anymore because I'm still here.
Yeah.
Now I can't talk to you anymore because I'm still here. So now you further isolate yourself. So now when everything is done, you're still in that mode of, I can't even go to you because you told me this. And now I'm embarrassed.
Right.
So now you have to go. So now you are alone. It's like you get stripped on so many different levels. You're alone in the relationship. And you're even more so alone when you're out of it.
Yeah. And there's the popular term gaslighting that happens too. Cause like most of the perpetrators or abusers aren't like really mean people to a lot of people in the world. Like, you know what I mean? Like usually they're like the nicest people to everyone else. And so there's this whole like crazy making and this gaslighting that happens. And so coupled with like the isolation, it's really, difficult. And so I think that we here at Purple House Project, like, want to like create community for people as well. You know what I mean? Like, and for the whole person, I know one of the things for me that's important is like access, right? Like not only access to transportation, but access to resources, like for people with disabilities, people with children, because like as a social worker, I have a lot of clients who come to me like, but they also have to bring their children, and so now they're got to sit in this office with me while like you unpack all these things with me. And so at Purple House Project, when we finally get a brick and mortar, because we don't have a building of our own, when we finally get a brick and mortar, I want to have a children's corner for, you know, licensed trained professionals to be with the children while like their parent or guardian is like talking to a professional, because it's really difficult to like talk while you got your baby sitting here screaming and crying. Exactly. And when can we go now? Are we almost done? And then like, let alone if you decide to discuss details about their, you know, their other parent, you know what I mean? It's difficult. And so I know for me, like one of the things I want to make sure is that we are able to like isolate the kids from like hearing this, you know what I mean? So like kids will be, and they'll too like learn about unhealthy relationships, you know what I mean? But like age appropriate wise, you know what I mean? Like my 5-year-old don't need to hear about how daddy is doing X, Y, and Z to me, you know what I mean? Because that's traumatic in and of itself.
Exactly. So I mean, you know, like when we talk about it, it has so many different layers, so many different elements to it. Like I heard you talk about, and I know some of the things we would go in some of our trainings, you know, to make sure that people understood that it's not just the black and white, what we think the poster child of, you know, a domestic violence relationship or an intimate partner relationship looks like. It has so many different colors to it, so many different variations to it. You know, we talk about someone who's disabled. So how do you support and help someone who's disabled, right? Who's maybe wheelchair bound, so and they're being abused, or someone who has now contracted HIV, you know, from their partner, and so now they're alienated. It's like it just goes through so many different facets to it, and and this is what the people are left with, and this is why there's so many broken pieces. And that's why I said some of the pieces are almost not saying that they're not, but there's so many pieces that are almost beyond repair. And then when they are being repaired, they're just so scattered. They're just so scattered and they're cracked, where it's becomes to the place where they're extremely fragile. That's for anyone who's endured any type of trauma. The pieces can get put back together. And actually, when they're put back together and when you become this whole person, you have a different intrinsic value about yourself, because now you are whole, you are new, you are anew, right? You're a new, like if your vase breaks and you glue it back together, it's a new piece of art, right? It has a different type of beauty to it. At the same token, it's very fragile. So in order to protect everyone's well-being and to preserve themselves, it's important to understand how to really truly be whole, because to be quite honest, no one's ever really whole again.
And that healing is like a process, and that like sometimes you like, I think for me, I remember thinking about like restoration, right? And like how like that's what I want to strive for. It's like I want to be restored. You know what I mean? Like
exactly.
And so just thinking about like restoration and healing, and how it's not just like, okay, step 1, 2, 3, and 4, and like how sometimes you could get to step 4 and then tomorrow go right back down to step 1. You know what I mean? And like just to remember to give yourself grace. Like I know we often talk about in like the drug and alcohol field that like relapse is part of the problem. Relapse is also part of the healing process too. And I think that like people need to realize that too. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
no, that's true.
There's like triggers that often happen that like you think like you're not about to cuss somebody out ever again. And then like that one thing, you're like, oh wait, I thought I was healed. I thought that don't hit.
I know. Even when you're healed, like you said, something can come out the woodwork and you go, where'd that come from? Like, I thought I dealt with that. Oh crap, that's a whole different layer. Like it's residue. Sometimes that residue sticks on you and it stays, and then it'll pop up. You're like, oh man, okay, I got to sit with this.
And I think that's what healing looks like, though, right? Like I think that healing looks like I'm able to name it now. Like so, before I would just do it and not know, but now I'm like, I do it and I'm just like, wait a minute, this is not healthy, this toxic. You know what I mean? And now let me go book a session with my therapist to like unpack. I mean, I think like I'm like, wait, I thought I was done doing it. All right, I'm not, but I like.
I know exactly. And Asha said, well, Yolanda said, oh my God, yes. So we said something that she just totally agreed with. And then Asha, she basically just said, you know, it's double trauma, you know, so when you get an HIV diagnosis and dealing with IPV, so that's double trauma right then and there. So talk about self-isolation, talk about trauma. Just trauma is it just does so much to all of us, to our family units, to our communities. It's just
and people don't think of the different ways people use control. Like thinking about HIV, right? Think about insurance. So like if you're on your partner's insurance and you need their insurance in order to get your life-sustaining medication, they could use that over your head to be like, okay, if you leave me, then I'm going to take you off the insurance. And yes, there is state insurance, but the state insurance, like if you have basically anything if you have any assets, or if you have basically anything in your savings over like $2,000, you're not going to be, you know what I mean? And so like a lot of times people use things like for leverage, like your health, like
same thing with someone who's handicapped. Same thing. It's leverage. Yeah. It's leverage. Anything that they can hold over you. Having a child, having a baby. You know what I mean? Like paying for everything, paying your rent. There are any kind of way to make them believe that they have something over you, where it's like you lose your power, right? You lose your power, and then when that happens, it chips away at you to the place of, once you do become free, you have to now repair all those broken chips. You have to then repair all the things that got lost, because that's what happens. It's like pieces of you kind of just like wither away. The longer you're in certain situations, the more of you gets lost. And a lot of times you don't even have to be in it that long. You don't even have to be in it that long.
Yeah.
You don't have to be in it that long.
I feel like we're in a society now, and I used to resonate with this, and at times I do. But then when I think about it as like clinically, when people often say like, I'm gonna give people the same energy they give me, how like toxic that can be at times, because like your friend probably not talking to you because they don't want to talk to you. It's probably because they're like wrestling with something like internally, or at home, or you know what I mean. And so I think we're in such a cancel culture right now, unfortunately, that like if you don't respond quick enough, or if you don't do this quick enough, then you clearly, you know what I mean? Like you clearly don't. And I feel like that makes it even more. And then like, just you and I both know the statistics say it takes the average person like 7 times, you know what I mean, before they leave. And so how many times can you hear your girlfriend tell you she really, really gonna leave this time? And you're like, okay, you know what I mean? And so it's kind of like the little boy who cried wolf, unfortunately. And like, unless you're a trained professional, or you like have like know about like domestic violence or intimate partner violence, is difficult. And so
it's difficult. And let's be real, even people who know about it still can get caught in it.
You listen. And so like
even people who know about it, and when you know about it, that makes it even worse too. Can you like
that shame piece, that shame, you can't
go that part, because can I tell you when I was the chair over, once again, one of the major one of the top 3 domestic violence relationship organizations in the city, when I was the chair, okay, not just a board member, the chair, first African American woman chair of this long-standing organization, fighting and doing things for women and children who were in domestic violence relationships, intimate partner relationships, while I was in one.
Listen, heavy, right? You needed somebody to intercede on your behalf. Like here you are sitting there interceding on everybody else's behalf, and you can't even call the hotline because you're like, I know the people on the hotline. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's how deep it can get. Yeah. So it doesn't even have. So when we say, oh, it has this face to it, no, it doesn't.
Some of the phone calls I get are like highly educated, like full career entrepreneurs, like business thriving.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going on.
Yeah. And this is going on. And this is going on. And this is going on. So yes, it's still frustrating. Okay, I think they're having conversations back and forth about the so why doesn't she just leave? So many reasons. Okay, Yolanda had talked about when we talk about why people don't leave. That it is so many different reasons. When people always ask that question, like, why don't you just leave? Sometimes it's not that easy. It's not that easy to leave. If especially if the other person has a lot of control over their finances, their place of employment, their living, all their situations, it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard. And then kind of it's like the way I describe it, and I even wrote about it in one of my books. It's like just basically being in too deep. Sometimes you just get so into deep. It's you got to try to find your way out.
I did a presentation for a National Association of Social Workers about this framework called intersectionality, and it looks at the different intersections. So for me, example, like not only am I an African American woman, I'm an African American woman who's a mom who lives with a disability, and so like how all of those identities impact me on a good day and on a not so good day, and they impact how I show up in the world, right? And so like I encourage providers, clinicians, helpers, friends to look at the full person, right? So she probably or he probably just don't leave because maybe they're they're the caregiver, or maybe they rely on them for medication or financial, or maybe disability, or maybe they're used to a certain lifestyle. And so I think it's important for us to look at the different intersections. I often tell people, listen, wherever you are in the process, what can I do to help make it safer, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, do you have a person that you need to call? Do you have a code word that you need to give? Like, what can I do? Like, do you need to talk to me like in code? Do you feel safe talking to me? Like every time I talk to someone, I'm like, is now a good time? Do you feel safe? Like, how do you want me to introduce myself? You know what I mean? And so I think all of those things are important, and they also help with the transition process. I think that a lot of times domestic violence, like people feel like in order to cure domestic violence, it's when you like help the person successfully leave. But I feel like there are successes in keeping you safe while you're still in it until you're ready to go. You know what I mean? Because you and I both know that one of the most lethal times is when someone leaves, right?
That's that part right there. That's the most important part. You don't say a lot of times people want them to leave. Just leave. Mm-hmm. But you don't know the circumstances around them leaving.
Yeah. Like, could you imagine? Because I think about like, I'm not going to ever just tell you to just leave tomorrow, because I'm thinking about like your social security card, your birth certificate, your X, Y, and Z. Like, I'm gonna need you to have all your important documents, and you can't just grab that all at one time. And so slowly but surely, I want you to start gathering and making copies, bringing them to your social worker, bringing them to your girlfriends, whatever the case may be. Right. And slowly but surely, so we can be strategic, because I think that more often than not, when people just hurry up and leave, it's easy to go back because everything is all over the place. It's all scrambled. It's all, you know what I mean? Absolutely. But if it's strategic, I think you have a likelihood, it's a stronger foundation. You have a likelihood of like actually being able to successfully transition. And there's outliers.
Right. That's the key, to be successful, to successfully transition out of one situation into your next. Yeah. So let me say, so now Yolanda says, she chimed in. She is still frustrating when dealing with someone close to you, even though you know the stages. So even though you know the stages, as someone who works closely with domestic violence and IPV, and then it's like, okay, now I know someone who's in it, and it's like, how can I help them? Yeah. And it's hard to sit back and watch, whether even if it's yourself. And then she also says 75% of the murders actually occur when someone leaves. So that's the most dangerous time. So people don't understand when they say, well, why doesn't she just leave? Or why doesn't he just leave? Or why don't they just leave? Because it's not that simple. And then you have to, understand where they're at. Because I'm like, okay, if there's a level of fear, then they're not going to make the right decisions on how they leave.
And think about now, well, how they gonna leave right now? We got these stay-at-home orders. You know what I mean? Like, and all the shelters are to capacity, so we have no choice but to make people as safe as possible in that situation.
Right. So, I mean, it has a lot. Everything is case by case. Everything literally is case by case. And I know same thing. We encourage them to make sure they have a safety plan. Because maybe at that moment, that's the safest place for them to be. Mm-hmm. But they just have to understand the parameters of what's going on. Yeah. Like, okay, be prepared. Okay, and I know when this person is drinking, okay, these things may occur. Let me make sure all this stuff, maybe they throw stuff. Let me make sure this stuff is put away. Like little stuff. Or let me start packing up some things slowly but surely so they don't see what I'm packing up. So that way when the opportunity hits, I'm out. Or maybe they get passed out so drunk. That's my window. That's when I can leave. Now I can call my plan B and say I'm coming. And that's the thing. You have to make this a strategic effort. Like I can say for me, like for the whole control piece, for me, it was like, okay, I have to start to regain control. And this was domestic violence situation number one. Because remember, it doesn't, once you go through it once, you're prone, could possibly go through it again. And I did. So my thing was, okay, I have to regain control. So there was some stipulations that, I changed in our arrangement. So like the rent, I think I wound up just taking care of it. I got it. But he was paying the rent. It was in my name. First, the rent was in both our names, and then I put it in my name only. So he was still helping to pay. Okay. But then I was like, I think I'm going to start working full time now because I got to help pay for daycare. Because I went full time so I could start making more money enough so that way I know I can cover the full rent. Then it was my car note. He paid the car note. I paid the tuition. But then I never had my car. Right? So, okay, I'm going to pay the car and you pay the tuition. Wasn't it the same money? Nah, it's not. So, but what it was now I could take back control because now the car is mine, not yours. Now, our child is ours, but you don't want your child to be without. So you're going to take care of that, even though that still wound up not happening the way I thought either. But it was about regaining control over the things I could control.
Absolutely.
And so therefore, that was so much easier for the transition for me later. When it was time, when everything was said and done, it was much easier for that transition to occur. Now that was on that certain situation. The next one was totally different. And that's what happens. You can know all the steps, you can know all the things. And like I said, it's case by case. The next one came at me in a different way. All the situations came at me differently where I'm like, that wasn't in the textbook. That wasn't even in my past experience. And that's the thing. We wind up being so in the transition. I wish there was a way to figure out a way to find out how to deprogram someone, right, who's been through it, because what happens is that we have this past experience, and that's what we say our experience is our best teacher. Well, sometimes it's the wrong teacher because we're walking through the rest of our life with that past experience, and then this is how the other experiences can come in because they don't look anything like what we went through before.
Yeah.
And that's how people get tricked up, and that's how people get into it even deeper. And then it's like, oh gosh, and that talk about, like I said, being fragile, talk about the broken pieces, and talk about almost to the part of, not being irreparable. Right? So it just has so many different, so many different layers. When you leave the abuser, it bumps up his game. Yo, yeah, that's what I just said. When you leave him, it bumps up his game. And it does. It really, really does. Because that's when things get really bad. That's when things get really, really, really bad. And that's when you have to have really a good support system. And a lot of times it's women. I know it's other, not just women, but especially with women with children. That's the most vulnerable time and place and space after they leave, because not only are you fighting for yourself, you're fighting for your children, you're fighting for your well-being. You're just fighting. You're just in a perpetual fight mode. You're fighting for your employment. You're just fighting. Like the world is like, you feel like the world is on your shoulders.
Can we talk about that too, the employment piece of it? Because I remember getting a call about a year or two ago about, I have a really good friend and she's a supervisor, she's a nurse, and she knew that one of her employees was in a very, very toxic relationship, and it turned into a partner violence relationship. But her employee never disclosed to her about the relationship. She just knew because she saw and she was aware. And so my friend called me and was like, Christine, like, what should I do? Because like she's having attendant issues and all these other types of things. And I know it's literally enough because of the violence that she's experienced, but she hasn't told me yet. And so if I could give anyone some like insight or advice, it would be to like find someone at your job, or make sure you read through your employee manual about what your rights are at your job. You know what I mean? There are FMLA, which is family medical leave of absence, and oftentimes people think it's just for, pregnancy, adoption, but it's also for mental health. And we know for a fact that oftentimes people who experience intimate partner violence, there is some mental health that's going on. There's some PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, because of the violence that they're experiencing. There's some major depression disorder that's going on because of the violence. And so make sure you're talking with your provider. Like, if you need to get a note from your provider to let them know, like, hey, this is what I have, give it to your job. Because one of the things that happens is like people struggle with attendance issues and they lose their job, and then it's even harder to leave. But if you could like make sure, if you don't feel comfortable talking to your HR person, just make sure you're reviewing your employee manual. If you have questions about your employee manual, or if you need to talk to someone and you don't feel comfortable talking to your employer, you can reach out to us. We can like unpack that thing with you. I know some really good HR people who sat down with me and was like, here are people's rights, but people don't talk about it.
Well, people don't talk about it because that was one of the things that when I was on the board, this is something that we did. This was years ago, which would help, especially women that were in the city of Philadelphia. And like you talked about the FMLA, but it was really directed towards domestic violence, because that's the time that you're the most vulnerable. That's the time where you have to, go back and forth to court. You said it ties into your mental health, but it's specifically for domestic violence survivors. The city of Philadelphia, that you can do FMLA based on that. Now, things may have been altered and changed since I was part of the committee that helped make sure that was a law in the city years ago. And that was one of the things. So at that time, it's so funny. Ironically, I was part of the help for the decision, and I was actually able to utilize it for myself. How about that?
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah.
So let's see. We got a couple people. So before we go, because we're about to close out, I don't want to go too past an hour, but I think we might. So Yolanda says, who helps? I got to put my glasses on because this is a lot. I'm squinting. So Yolanda says, and I actually got to clean them too. They're kind of dirty. Who helps? Oh, okay. Who helps families after the member is murdered, especially kids? The whole family is affected. Yeah, we don't talk about that. And then please talk about the procedure for getting a protection order. And then Yolanda confirmed that it's still a law. Awesome. Okay. So that's good. I'm proud that it's still a law, because I was actually part of the process to make that a law when it was in effect. So I'm glad that that's still in effect. You know how laws get changed. Laws get changed. I'm glad that's still in effect.
Yeah.
So if you want to chime on those two things while we have a couple minutes, I don't know if you can wrap those up, but Yolanda wanted to know, when someone's murdered, how does the full family, holistically, because it's not, even whether they're murdered or not, still the whole family is impacted and it's affected. Yeah. So what's the support for that? And then also just getting, a PFA, protection order from abuse.
Yeah. I think, we at Propose Project try to help with the whole family. And then also, I often just encourage people to connect to different social services, right? So like if there's someone in the family who has any kind of diagnosis, there's like all kinds of social services for all kinds of diagnoses. So my 9 to 5, I work with people who live with HIV and AIDS. And so if there's someone in the family who is HIV positive or cerebral palsy or whatever the case may be, or there's also social service agencies that just help in general. And so I would just encourage people to connect with social service agencies, because usually they're kind of like an umbrella, can help with like access to medical care, access to housing, access to food resources. So I would just connect to a social service agency. And then for PFAs in Philly, I know, is it Women Against Abuse who has the legal clinic?
Women Against Abuse.
So they help with, starting the PFA process. And then in Delaware County, there's a domestic abuse project who also has like a legal services that can assist you with the protection from abuse process as well.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. So listen, thank you so much, because I don't want to take up all your time tonight. I know we can go on this topic forever and ever. And I'm thank you for those who are chiming in with us, because it's very, very helpful to keep this conversation going. And that's why I wanted to make sure I featured you, because of the work that you do and the importance of it. And it's not, it's something that should really be talked about all year, because it happens all year. And especially now in this pandemic where, the world is different now. The world is very different now. And so is our trauma.
Right.
That's our trauma. And so is our trauma. So, but now we get to see, who this joy of a person is, right? Christine. And, this Purple House project that you have, and why now we can understand why you were nominated and why you were the runner up for the Sister's Choice Award, because you were definitely everybody's choice. So thank you. You're welcome. Thank you for everything that you do. Thank you for continuing to, just pour into the community and make sure that, you said, it's about, everyone's well-being and wholeness, the whole family, the whole person, which is so important in order to have this process of healing, to know that, there is a good life after you have any kind of trauma and abuse. That I know that firsthand, right? There's definitely a good life afterwards. And it's all in how you're able to piece yourself back together and recognize, even when you have those triggers, even when things come up, even when new things get revealed, that, you've built yourself up to a place and space where you can now sit in it and identify it, process it, and restore from. I like that word, restore. So once again, I want to thank you for being with us this evening on this Wednesday, to just shine the light, spread the light on this Purple House project. And Christine Joy, Sister's Choice Award nominee, runner up 2020. This was amazing.
Yeah.
So I am going to hold tight. I'm going to put you backstage for a second. So I just want to close this out, but stay tuned. Don't go nowhere.
Ma'am.
Oh, before you go, tell everybody how they can reach you. That's what you can do real quick.
Yes. And I'm sure Yolanda will drop it in the chat as well. So you can reach us we are on Facebook, Purple House Project PA Inc., Instagram, Purple House Project. You can check out our website, purplehouseprojectpa.org. And then also, if you don't mind, we are having an initiative about our community garden. And so we're starting a community garden in North Philadelphia this spring. So stay tuned to our website and our social media to see how you can help.
Awesome. Thank you. So you guys, you heard it. Purple House Project. Definitely check her out. All the social media platforms. Yolanda, like she said, I think we'll put it in the chat so that way everyone can see it, all the information on how you can reach out to this amazing organization, Purple House Project PA, projectpa.org. Excuse me. So yeah, definitely, there you go. This is another one of, these Wednesday night things I do, right? So we're all the way live. It was all the way live with Christina Joy, the founder and CEO and creator of Purple House Project. Thank you so much for tuning in this evening. And I will see you guys later. I got some amazing news always. We always got something to share with you guys, but I'll do that on another day, because today was all about Christine. So I want you to do one of three things. What do I always tell you? Be empowered, be inspired, and most importantly, I gotta get up in your face, be magnified. All right, see you guys. Have a wonderful evening. Take care. Bye.